Hi, I'm Matthew Newhall. Welcome to the first episode of the Technocrat Live. There was a problem with the audio in the beginning of the video. I'm sorry. It won't happen again. My guest is Izaac Falken. We began by discussing his role as a pen tester. Please enjoy.
Web app stuff, because again, there are better people for that and so forth.
So did you ever?
I'm old school niche.
Do you ever accidentally light a data center on fire, or push a server out the window thinking that the rack went further back or anything like that? Or?
No. Well, I mean, I've been in a data center where somebody knocked over a rack, like a row of racks of machines.
Really?
Yeah, that was fun. That was the late '90s.
Did they use a forklift, or were they just hulking?
Well,
server, make me angry.
So way back in the day, Sun made these 4U tall servers that were full depth, yay big, and they would just be loaded full of disks and so forth. I actually have one.
Really?
Yeah, it's called a Thumper. It's got like 44 disks in there.
Is it a souvenir, or you just can't move it from wherever it fell?
No, it has 44 hard drives you can put in there.
Nice.
1 terabyte each. That's a lot. That's a lot of disk.
They're up to 14.
44.
Yeah, no. I was saying they're up to
14 terabytes per disk.
Yeah. It's crazy, man.
It's nuts. But anyway, this guy was servicing a much earlier sort of notion of that back in the 90s. So, like pocket smartphone, but an entire rack of them in terms of processing capacity.
Right.
And the guy was just putting it in RAM. And so he took one of them out and rolled it out on the slides, and turned around and tried to get a thing. And he wasn't really paying attention. He'd unscrewed all of them. So what happened was when the rack started to lean a little bit...
it did the toolbox thing, where they showed the baby being crushed by the toolbox.
And so each machine in succession slid itself out, which completely changed the center of mass, and it pulled that rack. It was bolted to the other racks next to it. And so you just heard this horrible screeching noise.
How many racks was it?
It was the entire row.
Right. So like 10, 20, 30?
No, it was like 8.
Still, that's
probably
impressive.
It might have been 10.
Oh my
but
God.
Yeah, I mean the ones on the end.
That's a million hits on YouTube right there.
The ones on the end were still upright, but like it made this weird bow as all these machines just kind of fell. They finally propped up on the bottom server, and the guy is just like sitting there, they're standing there and trying to avoid being pinned.
Yeah, at least he didn't try to catch it. I know a guy who got hurt working in a shop, and like something fell. And I do it too. It's so crazy.
It's an instinct,
right? You're just like, oh, this thing's falling. Let me stop it from breaking.
Be protected.
And guess what breaks? You.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
You figure you're invincible, not the $1,000 piece of equipment or whatever. But that was entertaining. I just kind of wander out. I was like, "You okay?" Like all my gear is 2 racks.
Well, if you still hear screams, there's hope. When they go quiet, that's
when you have a problem.
That's where you got to worry, right?
Yeah, that was a fun time. I had a pen test for an insurance company though once that they wanted me to. It was a light manufacturer. And they had a laser cutter for, it went up to about a 1/4-inch aluminum.
Right.
And the insurance company was like...
So wait, hold on a second. So they had lasers?
Lasers.
Excellent.
A laser CNC machine. And they're like, do you think you could get the thing to fire, out of sequence or whatever? Because, it's like, well, UL tested this thing. It's like, yeah, but they tested the parts of it. It's not like they tested the software or anything. So I got to play with a laser cutter for a while, and that was cool.
That's great.
Yeah, I carved my name out in a CNC machine. I lost it somewhere along
the great thing about lasers is they just keep going.
Yeah, as long as they got power. But
right.
That was a fun one.
It's probably not good to be a laser scientist in the city.
No. Although you do get the cool glasses.
Yeah. The steampunk flip down ones.
Yeah, or just like weird colors.
Right. I've been trying to find a good pair of those for my bike, so I could ride around looking like half scientist, half crazed biker. Anyway.
The internet.
I haven't found it. It seems like it would be like a natural fit for steampunk. I want them to actually work, to be actually ANSI.
Oh, not just like glued gears.
Yeah. And I don't want it to just be cosplay. I want it to be real glasses.
No.
Okay. Yeah, there's probably going to be like a million links, like, duh, they're right here. Anyway.
It's a good support mechanism you got.
Yeah, so, actually I have a good story about a data center. So actually my last gig, it was 2 days before Hurricane Sandy, and I had just looked at the weather, and I was like, "This is bad. This is really bad." And at that place, they had a data center close to the water, and I went to my boss's boss, and I said, "This is going to be a really bad hurricane. There's going to be a storm surge, and we really need to start." Now it's a secondary data center. We really need to clear out this data center and get these servers out of there.
Yep.
And they were like, "Yeah, don't worry about it. It's just a secondary data center." Needless to say, 2 days later, after I walked the bridge to get into the city, they were now pulling the servers out of the data center that had water up to the removable panels on the floor.
Oh, good.
Yeah. So.
Oh, good.
I was right. I called it, man. I mean, so what do you do in that situation when you're in, like, you're working, doing pen testing, someone's hired you to find a potential flaw, but it sounds like Chicken Little, and they're like, "I can't believe this is going to really be a problem for us"?
It depends on the gig. It depends on the customer. A lot of times, if it's the sort of person who really wants to know if there are issues,
right,
they're going to take what you have to report very seriously. And there's a level of trust. Like, there are a lot of companies that'll go out there and they'll give you like the output of some automated scanner that'll tell you, "Oh, you're using SSL." Or TLS v1 and TLS v12 is like the new standard, or like, "Oh, your RSA keys are only 2048-bit when they really should be 4096, and that's the Chicken Little bullshit.
Right.
And it's just, no, guys, don't waste my time with that stuff. I try not to do that. Like, I will tell you, there's a bunch of little piddly crap that you could clean up in the course of a weekend if you really wanted, but here's what you really need to focus on: architectural issues.
So it sounds like you're not like worried about liability at all. Like I assume, did they sign a waiver?
Liability?
Do they sign a waiver? Oh, okay. Yeah. So it's just the goodness of your heart that makes you trying to make it better.
Try not to really break things while I'm
no. I mean, like, like when you're like, "This is going to happen," and they don't listen. How do you just, I guess, all right.
That happens. Yeah. You deliver the report, and then it's like, "Do you want me to help you to remediate this?" And if not, then you don't.
Right.
I actually had a customer that I had previously done a fairly large gross sort of analysis of their network. And they had a DNS vulnerability, an internal DNS vulnerability. Their DNS servers were susceptible to cache poisoning.
Right.
And, it's internal DNS, is a big corporation. 10,000 seats, lots of servers, things like that.
Why don't you give cache poisoning 30 seconds in case someone doesn't understand it, because it's going to be a mixed audience.
Yeah, that's fine. So how DNS works.
Right.
What is DNS? The domain name system. You type in www.google.com, and your computer doesn't talk English or letters. What it does is it talks numbers, IP addresses.
Right.
And so what it does is it goes out to the internet. Imagine a cloud here with lots of cats videos. And it asks, "Hey, I want to go to this string. What is the address, the numeric address of that?" We'll say it's 1.2.3.4.
Right.
The server that goes out and does that is called a DNS server, and that network of servers is the domain name system.
Right.
And your ISP's DNS server, or your DNS server that you run, or your company's DNS server will get the result, and it tucks it away in a little pocket. Because you're probably not the only person who's ever going to go look for www.google.com. There's probably a lot of people who would like to go to www.google.com, and Google's servers aren't going to change very often.
Right.
So you put it in a cache.
Right.
So that the next time somebody asks, you don't have to go all the way out to the cat video land. You can just like have the result right there. It's a little sketchbook that you have. Cache poisoning is telling the DNS server a result that it didn't ask for, so it puts it in its little crib sheet without having gone out there. So instead of being
that, awesome explanation. Keep going.
So instead of that number being 1.2.3.4,
right,
you make it 5.6.7.8. So anybody that uses that DNS server is going to get the wrong address,
right,
or the poisoned address. So anyway, this company had DNS servers internally that were susceptible to cache poisoning, and I put it in my report, and it was fine. And about 4 or 5 weeks later, I get a call in the middle of the night because I had a good rapport with them. And they're like, listen, we've got a problem. And we think it's name server related. Do you think it might be this poisoning thing you were talking about? I'm like, what? It's 2 a.m. Like,
I guess they didn't have voice over.
my contract, like,
Good thing, right?
like this contract was paid and like a month old now.
The power of procrastination.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway.
And so it's like, can you help us walk through it? I'm like, yeah, sure, whatever. And so I go in there. Like they sent a cab to go and get me and bring me back to the facility. And I get in there, and the longer version of the story is short. What happened was they had acquired a new company, and this was the first night that the two networks were together. And they had two computers that had the same name. And so this part of the company wanted to connect to this computer, but they were instead connecting to the other one. And then this part of the company was trying to connect to the wrong computer. And so it was all screwed up. And
so it almost sounds like a split brain.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was a namespace collision. So it wasn't a problem with the cache poisoning. But when I turn and I go, so you guys didn't fix that, right? They're like, no. I'm like, hang on, I can fix this.
I remember. Okay.
And intentionally deployed the correct information, poisoning all of the all of the
So
caches.
your delivery method.
My delivery method
was cache poisoning.
Yes.
That they didn't bother to fix.
Exactly.
Procrastination.
I took advantage. I took advantage of the flaw to actually deliver the correct information more quickly than doing it the right way.
Right.
And then I'm like, one of them said, "Is like, well, I'm sure I'm glad we didn't fix that, huh?"
Yeah.
And I just want to smack him upside the head. It's like, I shouldn't be able to do this.
I'm clever and brilliant. No, you're a pointy-haired boss. I'm sorry.
So that was an entertaining.
Maybe somewhere in between. Maybe there's got to be something to the pointy-haired boss who keeps winning, right? They keep winning. Shooting from the hip sometimes does work.
Well, the thing with the Peter principle is right up until that last promotion, you're doing really well.
Right, yeah. I love Orange Peter. Great. So, by the way, if you want to promote your company or how people can contact you, or they'll find
it's all word of mouth.
Right.
My busy season starts soon. It's the spring, so all the golf courses open. And then everybody talks about stuff on the golf course, and I'll get calls. It's weird. It took me years to realize that, because I used to try to go away for the summer, and then my winters would be dead.
Yeah.
Like my busy season wound up being the spring and the summer, and I didn't realize why. It's when all the inquiries came in, and I finally figured it out. Is they're just talking about oh yeah, I got this guy who helped us out at this thing on the golf course, because they're executives, and that's how they talk about stuff.
Right.
So. I'm a very bad golfer, too.
Right. So my son plays golf. He's pretty good.
Nice.
And I'm excited for him for being able to use it for corporate espionage purposes. or at least being able to climb up the corporate ladder until he's reached his level of incompetence. Because,
right. There you go.
Yeah. He might be watching right now. So
taking notes.
He's a big gamer. So I haven't really got him into he's got the knack, but he's just not. He's not into it yet. It's really weird. I thought, we went and we did a show for Lilug where we were showing off Raspberry Pis. It was for Slime, the Slime conference. Okay. And Slime's this Nassau County thing where they're trying to get people interested in STEM. That's a whole other rant about how.
When did we come up with all of these acronyms?
The STEM stuff is kind of crazy because I think that I feel like they're sacrificing kids in school for the sake of all the kids out there everywhere not getting 4 square meals of education. So they're throwing everyone under the bus just trying to find 5 more computer science students. I think that's almost how I see the core curriculum, and STEM is the PR branch of that. And I'm not saying that people should go into science, and it's awesome, and I want that to happen, but I'm bummed out because I feel like not everybody can be a computer geek. Everyone can't do it. So throwing money behind
a particular set of like classes and courses and so forth. That's the STEM fields: the science, technology, engineering, and math. There's a competitive advantage.
Yeah.
In terms of the world market, because as we're getting more and more globalized, particularly in terms of things that are easy to do remotely, programming and computer science and engineering and so forth, we need to remain competitive. But it's really gotten to a point in the world where being a part of any field, you're going to benefit knowing how to program.
Well, yeah.
How to like really use a computer, even if you're not into an engineering discipline, even if you're not going into technology. Being able to program a computer greatly improves your life. Like, I have friends who get a lot of email, and they use Gmail. And you show them how to use filters and labels and tags and things like that. And just within the concept of Gmail and how to filter and shuffle around your messages is very powerful for them.
Right.
But is also very difficult because they haven't quite learned how to think like a machine.
Right. Well, see, this
think
is
procedurally and think process-wise and think in
people
algorithms.
Can't do that, man.
Yeah, but that's where I think all of the STEM stuff is getting, putting the cart ahead of the horse.
Right.
Like if we had a much better sort of education around just learning how to think algorithmically, learning how to think procedurally, learning how to think mechanically, so that we can interface with these machines better, you'd be in a better place. And then you can start doing the STEM stuff.
And
really
look,
get rich.
I'm totally not against that. Everybody wants that, right? But I just don't know if it's realistic. I mean, I've just having sat with, you know me. I've worked in a lot of scientific institutions with top scientists. Usually, the bulk of it was genetics, but not all of it was. Yep. And some was physicists. And they just, it's not an intelligence thing. These people have IQs that these people have phenomenal IQs, and they're battle tested. They've discovered something new, and they just don't get it. I could sit there and explain it till I'm blue in the face. Is it an age thing? I mean, I guess that's what the thinking behind core and STEM is, but I don't know if I buy it, because
it's a way of thinking,
right?
And I think that's where our educational system.
That's the knack, right?
Yeah. Well, just to step away again, like what the educational system should be doing is teaching you how to think, not necessarily what to think,
right?
Or these are the subjects you should be interested in. Like, this is the process by which you can arrive at truth. This is the process by which you can solve problems. This is the process by which you can conduct research and draw conclusions and so forth. And there's no course for that, right? Like, there's no specific class that teaches you how to do research. There's no specific class that teaches you how to arrange data, or not necessarily even go into a statistical analysis or anything, but just like, how do you collect data? What are data? What is it that you can do with this? What is good data? What's bad data? How do you throw stuff away? I mean, unless you're in hard math.
Well, some of that is learned, yeah.
Some of that is learned.
Some of that's learned.
But even just procedurally. I have a zip car to come out here today. I live in the city.
Right. Did you pay
drive
for it?
Very much. Yes, I paid for the zip.
I'm sorry, I had to rib you.
It's
summon car.
Well, I mean, we're going to get to that point.
Yeah.
But they their system in terms of how the cards work and the prox cards. It's interesting, and it's a good time.
Come back to that.
Yeah, we'll come back. The subway, the
zip car,
Metro card is another fun one.
Okay, zip car evil. Go on.
Yeah, zip car evil. Little note. But I was driving out, and there was a Subaru that had lane detection and like staying in your lane, little nudges on the steering wheel, and then obstacle avoidance and collision prevention for lane following. So I had the cruise control on, and it's got this little control for how close do you want to get to the car in front of you. And I'm like, what the hell is going on here? And it would get to a certain point, and then it would start to slow down, and eventually it would brake. And I'm thinking like, ooh, how does this work?
Right.
That's interesting. And I start thinking about, okay, well, it's probably some sort of radar system or lidar system or some kind of thing that there is a sensor in the front of the vehicle that is measuring perhaps grossly, perhaps finely, the distance between me and the things in front of the vehicle.
Right.
Well, how is this going to behave if somebody comes into my lane?
Right.
And those are the kinds of thoughts that I certainly have, because I have a sort of engineering mindset and I like to think about how things work.
Right.
But if you're...
you know what it means? It means you're really boring.
It means I'm a horribly boring person.
You're a bore. You're terrible parties. Nobody wants to talk to you.
But the consequence of something like that is if you don't understand how the system works, you can be surprised by it.
Right.
So when somebody comes into the lane about halfway and then sort of like makes their way back out, what's the car going to do?
Right.
If you don't expect that, oh, okay, well, one of the sensors says one thing, the other sensor says the other thing, what's the conflict? Coming from that engineering mindset, you're less likely to be surprised. You can accommodate that. You're accommodating the machine. If you don't know how it works, you're going to be like, oh crap, why did this thing just suddenly slam on the brakes?
Right. You're going to overreact. You're basically going to have two chefs making the stew, and it's going to be terrible.
What was your first experience with anti-lock brakes?
Anti-lock brakes. So I hated them for years. Yeah. So,
I mean, like the very first time you were in a vehicle with anti-lock brakes and you hit that pedal.
Oh, of course.
And it goes.
I pumped the brakes. Right.
Right. And you're like,
I see your point.
Whoa! What just happened?
Yeah.
If you're, I don't want to tout myself as a great engineering mindset, but I recognize how I think.
Right.
The first time I encountered anti-lock brakes.
Well, hold on a second.
That's really weird.
Just want to pause. That's awesome. And like a lot of people don't do that. A lot of people don't recognize how they think. Continue.
Yeah. The very first time I encountered anti-lock brakes, it's like, holy crap! What just happened? Oh, it's just pumping the brakes really fast. That makes sense. What are the traction implications and so forth? Yeah, you can get too far in your head and not think about that. But the next time I was A, less surprised, B, understood how it worked, and how it's not exactly perfect.
Right.
There are conditions where pumping your brakes really fast is not that great an idea.
I had an interesting story about that too, where I was first car with anti-lock brakes. First time they came into action, I went into action at the same time because I was an experienced enough driver at that point that I knew, okay, slippery, I got to pump the brakes.
Yep.
So they're going, and I'm going,
and you're fighting it,
and I'm fighting it, and it actually made it less effective, and I made the car a little bit harder than a normal car with me pumping the brakes would have been to control.
Yep.
So it almost got me in a wreck.
Yep.
Right. Yeah.
Exactly.
Which is exactly your point.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If just having that sort of mentality for understanding the things that you use in your daily life, you can really leverage and get power out of them as opposed to being sort of manipulated by them and controlled by them.
Now I've got you. Now I can ask you the hard question.
Ooh.
So where does it come from?
Where does what come from?
That's that thought process, the engineering thought process.
The sort of engineering thought process. I think it starts with curiosity.
Yeah.
I think it starts with a methodical approach to discovering your environment.
Right.
It's not natural to everybody, I don't think.
Right. See, this is what I'm saying. Yeah. So this is what's the problem with that. That I don't want to pick on STEM because STEM's fine. STEM's just a PR strategy. The real problem is the Common Core strategy of because I see my kids coming home. My kids succeed because they both have the knack, in this environment. But I see other kids struggling. They just don't. They're having trouble wrapping their. I see what they're doing. They're trying to make you look at every problem 6 different ways, right? So instead of just that funny line that was actually in the ad, so you might have seen it from The Incredibles, where Mr. Incredible's like math is math, math is math, right? They're breaking that, and they're trying to get you to look at it from a bunch of different ways. And for someone who has that engineering mindset, on the assumption that you're born with it, you approach it that way, and you go, okay, I see what they're doing. I understand the concept better than I ever did because they presented it to me this way. But for every kid that's like that, there's another kid that's like, there's too much information, I can't handle it, and their brain melts.
I think it can be learned.
Okay, interesting.
I think it can be learned. Yeah. Look,
I don't know, but I'm not sure I agree.
I don't know either, in all honesty. I'm not a cognitive scientist or a psychologist.
Anyone knows.
I doubt anyone knows anything.
It's like we're deploying the IT strategy in the education system, like fire, ready, aim.
So we've got there's an interesting sort of like maybe case study in terms of new math. Were you around for new math?
I was, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was
sequential.
Well. So I was probably one of the last new math course teaching students,
right,
before they reverted to like normal math.
Right.
And in new math.
Okay, so maybe I don't know.
Yeah,
what you're talking about.
my first grade education in mathematics was sets.
Okay.
And basically number theory. We didn't assume base 10.
And the rest is history. Good night, folks.
Yeah.
No, it's just,
Like
just kidding.
we didn't assume base 10. So they taught you addition, or just number representation, right? Like you had objects,
right,
and they came in groups of things. So if you had 1, 2, 3, 4 objects, and you had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 objects, and you added them, you would represent that as, say, a 7, and then you have an eighth, and in base 8,
right,
you would take 8 of those, and you would say 1 in the eighths place. And then, okay, there's 9. So there would also be a 1 in the ones place. So the number is 11.
Right.
In base 8.
Right. But it's not 11.
Which no one uses. But here you are, a first grader, learning at that deep level.
Am I going to out you if I ask you what year that was?
The early 1980s.
Close. That's awesome. You knew immediately to go vague on
yes,
that. Yes, early 1980s. So PCs were out.
Yeah, that
you grew up with PCs like me then. Yes.
Yeah, that's well. My first computer was a Commodore VIC-20.
Perfect. Yes. Okay. Yeah. So you did that in first grade, and then you went home and looked at your computer, and it went. And rainbows sprung from its monitor.
Yeah, that came a little later.
Okay.
But new math was, I mean, it showed up in the 60s. It was like fairly everywhere in the 70s, and towards the late 70s and the early 80s, it was starting to peter off.
Right.
But the thing with new math was, why don't we teach these students like the basic philosophical basis of mathematics?
Right.
Addition is you have these things and you put them together and then you re-represent that number and whatever else. What that allowed me and a lot of my peers to do, I get hex.
Right.
Right?
Yeah, you get it. You grok it.
Like it is deep seated in me because of those very early
If you don't
years.
know the word grok, learn it. Yes, you grok it. Yes.
Yeah. Moon is a Harsh Mistress. Excellent book.
Yes.
Definitely worth reading. A lot of Heinlein, frankly. But
Heinlein!
Yeah. Like base 16 is fairly natural to me because base 10, it was never surprising. And I think that new math was one of those overreaches. So like to your point, maybe not everybody gets it. New math was everywhere. Like it became the core curriculum during the 70s.
Right.
And they reverted because it was confusing people. It was confusing the adults and their parents. Like imagine going home, these poor parents.
Right.
It's like, well,
at least there was one parent home at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah, now they're both at work and they come home like, really?
Like adding and
just fail, it's easier.
What the heck? Yeah. What the heck is base 8?
Yeah.
If you want a really fun thing, Tom Lear is a pianist, and he used to write these fun songs. Yeah. He used to write these very clever songs back in the 60s, and one of them was called New Math.
Right.
And look for one on YouTube where they actually try to sketch it out on the chalkboard, where you do a simple problem in new math, and you'll learn everything you need to know about that. Anyway, by the time I got to about 2nd or 3rd grade, we'd reverted to the other math. So it was like, oh yeah, multiplication tables. What base are we in? Okay, so I have to compute.
So what you're telling me
8 times 7. So I have 8 groups of. No, just memorize the answer.
You literally had a human type error, is what you're having.
Basically, yeah.
Oh. I'm having a type error. I don't know what to. This student is very strange. I don't know what they're talking about.
But I don't. But. Yeah. But the basic point is that, like, I'm not sure that it's completely an innate thing, or if it can be learned, or if there's some combination thereof. What I do know is that we're not teaching that stuff anymore. We're not teaching how to think as a real direct sort of goal within education.
Right.
And that probably should change.
Yeah, I mean, so the focus in schools. I don't know how do we get into schools? This is really strange. Anyway, it just kind of flowed there.
We were talking about slime.
Talking about slime, I brought it up. I brought up my kids. And all right, so schools, you know.
Hi, kids.
Yeah. Get a Raspberry Pi. It's $39. It's worth it.
Yep. I just got mine recently.
So I just bought another one. I'll forget that other point. This is more interesting. So I just got another one, and I realized something. I can just do total data center deployments from a Raspberry Pi. So, I mean, I don't know. I just never registered before. I thought about doing it from a laptop, from a VM on a laptop, or a special boot on a laptop, or, you know, sticking a server in a rack. It's like, it's really terrifying how much control you can have with a machine you can barely physically see.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Have you ever done that? For hijinks, of course.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, there's lots of fun that can be had.
Yeah, there was a good Mr. Robot on that where they stuck it inside of a thermostat. They stuck a controller inside of a thermostat to take over their fictional version of Iron Mountain. I hope I don't get sued for that, but you know, that's what it was. Obviously, Iron Mountain, you know, in the show.
The very first. So I haven't actually seen Mr. Robot.
Sorry for spoiling it.
Yeah, I've seen I think 1 or 2 episodes of Mr. Robot. I saw the premiere, the very first episode, and my servers are in it.
Really?
They apparently filmed the data center scene at NYI, where I colo my stuff. And I'm like, that looks really familiar.
Holy crap! That is like some Matrix synchronicity shit going on right there.
Funny.
That is really weird.
And then I'm told that the premiere episode of the 2nd season, they're in the bar that I hang out at across the street from Hotel Pennsylvania, where they have Hope.
Wow, that's crazy. So,
and I know the guy who does the tech consulting for them, so I don't know if he's screwing with me. I should probably see the show.
Right.
Apparently, the guy who was in it was in that Queen movie where he played Freddie Mercury.
Really? Oh, is that him? Is the same actor? I don't know his name.
Alec something or other.
Yeah, he's really
Alec's
good.
A cool name.
Yeah, he shows a lot of depth. Have you watched Mr. Robot? You said this the first 2 episodes.
I've just seen like 1 episode.
It's a really interesting concept of an Uber hacker with mental illness, and you put those two together, and you know, where does it go? What can go wrong?
Pi?
Yeah, well,
but with less drills.
Pi was awesome. So go see Pi, and you know.
So get a Raspberry Pi and see Pi.
Get Raspberry Pi and see Pi. So
there should be Pi here.
You know, it's kind of like an art film, so I guess I don't even have to worry about spoiling it. It's so brilliant. I mean, it's so obviously like they even made the guy look like Linus Torvald. You know, it feels authentic. You know,
in Pi or
in Pi, yeah. The actor looks a little bit like Linus Torvald. I thought. I don't know. Maybe it was just me, but yeah. I mean, where they, of course, if you figure out an identity, you get a divide by zero error, right? You figure out some formula, and then all of a sudden the system literally just breaks, and you're like, I'm doing something wrong, and it was almost comical because like someone with the knack would kind of figure that out and go,
me,
yeah, I'm crashing this every time. I must have something going on here. I have to figure out how to turn this formula around the other way, right? But still, epic movie, very realistic. So worth the hour and a half.
I'm trying to remember it, frankly. After I watched, I had to get it out of my head.
This is like I have a list of notes here that I can just go to. This is great.
The B flat, F sharp.
Oh yeah. Bass. So not the treble clef.
No.
So I guess the reason, probably the point one of the points I wanted to come back to was something you were talking about was this learn to code. Thing that's going around. So there's this thing where the press was bugging people, like basically whenever anyone got laid off, there would be either the I don't want to blame the press because it's not really their fault. It really came from the politicians, and I think for the politicians it came from a misconception, and the misconception is, regardless of whether it's genetic or not, it ain't easy to get into the engineering mindset.
Nope.
No, you got to work at it. You got to be at it for years. And they're basically telling the coal miners, "What, just learn to code," and it's like, if you're working in a physical, you're used to the physical space,
Yep.
right? I mean, it's like the thinking in numbers and thinking in logic and thinking in language is very, very different. Doing both of them and enjoying both of them.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it is and it isn't. There are a lot of really bad programmers out there because they don't think.
Well, you don't have to. You don't have to. You just have to get it right once, right?
They don't think like a machine.
Right.
They don't prepare their. The biggest problem that programmers have is that they don't design.
Right.
And I'm saying that as a security guy. I'm saying that as an administrator. I'm saying that as an engineer. We've developed this culture of coding where you just start typing crap. Just start typing. The compiler will yell at you. It's like nobody designs anything. And the entire ecosystem is built around not designing, not structuring, not architecting, not even having an idea of what it is that you're trying to build. Like, could you imagine an artist doing that? You got a sculptor, he's got a big lump of marble.
You know what it screams of? It screams of learning your craft on the job. Yeah.
Exactly. And it's a big problem, to say the least. And that's why you have these.
Well, what should we do about it? I mean,
again, teach people how to think. Teach people how to approach problems in a methodical way that you can have measured success. It's hard. It's so easy to import GPS reader and not have to think about data structures or anything like that. Just what's a program? It's just a bunch of subroutines calling other subroutines.
Yeah, and then they don't realize that they unintentionally introduced a backdoor
to say the very
which someone comes along and exploits.
Right, and it's
and then you hear about watch their stock plunge in the news, know, and everyone's like, how'd that happen? It'd be like, and the press gets it wrong because they don't really get what happened.
Absolutely. I mean, you can have we have a brick wall here. You can have these well-designed pieces that are done by someone who's smart. We always tell people, don't write your own crypto. It's hard. Oh my God. Don't write your own crypto. It's super hard. And I agree with that.
I always thought of security as hard. So crypto's like the next order of magnitude harder because now it's security for money or at least currency.
Or for anything. Yeah.
Right.
Crypto is hard because there's a lot of things you have to think about at the machine level because you have to avoid side channel attacks and things like that. The math is hard because you do a lot of math in crypto and so forth. So the idea is leave it to somebody who knows what they're doing. And we have the open SSL issues, but we won't go down that road. But but you have these I've got a library, it's been written, it's been tested, it's all the rest of this. And so a lot of these line programmers figure they're just stacking bricks. And all they have to do is pour the mortar in between them and it's import this, and I'll use this library, and I'll call that, and I'll do the other thing, and this API will interface with that other thing, and so forth. And they don't even treat the mortar with anything.
Right.
They have no idea of how these bricks are supposed to stack up. It's like watching a 3-year-old trying to build something out of Lego, and they want the tower to be super tall.
You pretty much just described, physically, you pretty much described New York City. If there was ever an earthquake here, having lived in an old brick building that was literally held together by two bolts. I know it's just a metaphor, but it's still kind of an interesting one because, if it's just a thin stack of bricks, it only takes a little sideways, a little lateral motion,
even if
stress, and
or you've got some kind of weird cantilevered thing going on, and because you've never designed it, you don't understand how the weight is supposed to be distributed. We're still using metaphors as opposed to actual programming.
Well, the great thing about metaphors is sometimes you can go right off the rails and into the soup, and then sometimes you figure out something new with it.
Yeah.
So I love metaphors.
I hate them.
Really?
Yeah, they're imprecise and they tend to lead people in the wrong direction.
That's true.
You can get too hooked on them,
right?
Particularly when you're trying to explain something to somebody, and then they goes well, yeah, it's like playing the violin. Oh, so your neck has pain, and so that's when your carpal tunnel syndrome. It's no. no, you're going too far. Like,
well, you know,
neck pain is not, you need an oil change. Like, just stop with the metaphor.
What are you doing to me?
Back to the problem at hand.
Right. Yeah, no, it's actually, I found a lot of people with very analytical minds are like that. They they dislike metaphors, and they dislike analogies, and they dislike...
It's a great introduction, but you have to get rid of it as soon as possible. Like, once you get somebody up to speed or at least a little bit of traction, it's like, okay, let's put that aside, and we'll talk about the real thing now.
Right.
Because you can get stuck in the metaphor and try to elaborate on the metaphor, and you build the metaphor as opposed to actually building understanding.
See, so I completely understand where you're coming from, and definitely in the process of, in the strictest sense, in the engineering sense, you're really just running numbers, and you're seeing how things are going to pan out, and you're seeing what's possible, and or a statistical sense, a mathematical sense. Yeah. But I would actually disagree with you on that.
Ooh.
Because I think. No, don't hurt me, please.
This is a block.
No. Oh, okay. No, it's just I think the way that the brain works, it actually metaphors. So this is kind of crazy. This is off topic. I hope it's not too far down the rabbit hole. But
your show, man.
Yeah. It is my show. So
cheers to that.
Hey, cheers. And thanks for being on it. I appreciate that.
Thank you for having me.
I can't believe you don't want to plug your stuff.
Wine in a martini glass.
I can't believe you don't want to plug your stuff. You don't want to say, my company is da-da-da-da.
I don't have stuff to plug.
You don't have to tell people who you really are, and you can just, anyway. So,
tell me, Izaac at ctech.org. It's fine.
Right, of course, right.
Easy to find. Izaac at 2600.com. That still works.
Right. Yeah, I'll come back to 2600. So, the way I think it works is, I think our brains, I think our conscience and our subconscious is the same thing. Imagination is within that space, and this isn't just willy-nilly. I've spent a lot of time thinking about this and trying to figure it out. And I think that insight is really what drives most creative thinking, including analytical thinking. So what happens is you have an insight, and it's just this thing from the fog of your subconscious, and you can't see it directly. So then you have to rationalize it. So you gloss over it, and you look inside, and you say, okay, does this make sense with what I know about how the world works analytically? Mm-hmm. And either it doesn't make sense, insights are wrong sometimes, right? Mm-hmm. And that's what happens. I think people run with wrong insights, and that's what metaphors sometimes encourage people to do. Yeah. But if it turns out that it's true, especially if you're young enough, I'm not sure if this is true when you're older, or at least it's harder to do when you're older, but you come up with this archetype where you have a new kind of structure for how this thing looks and what the attributes of this thing are. So, if that happens, I don't want to, I think that metaphors and analogies are a way that adults in particular, but also kids. Maybe it's not as necessary for kids, but adults jumpstart themselves to create a new archetype.
Yes, and that's why they're powerful.
You understood what I said?
We're on the same page.
Great. Okay.
Yeah, metaphors are very powerful.
Right.
And it's like power, absolute power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. A powerful metaphor is useful.
I'm a metaphor man.
Yeah, but a very powerful metaphor can corrupt. Here's a great example. You've never seen a hippopotamus before, and I described to you, a hippo's kind of like a pig and a horse together.
Right.
Right? And you're like, oh, I know what that is. It's sort of rounded, it's pink, and it's got tusks. Like an elephant? Yeah, sure, why not? What animal? Okay, and you kind of get an idea. You're sort of picturing a hippo in your head. Mm-hmm. What animal on Earth is the closest genetic relative to the hippopotamus?
I actually have no idea.
The whale.
Get out of here.
Yes.
So
hippopotami have more in common with whales than they do any other land animal.
Oh, interesting.
And so if you go down this metaphor of it's like a pig and a horse and an elephant had a weird fun Friday night and created this big pink
animal
monster.
By committee,
Right. And yet the actual biology is much more fascinating.
Right.
And if you stick with the metaphor of like, yeah, it's another land animal that just happens to be semi-aquatic in Africa, you're going to lose out on the richness of actually understanding the biology of the hippopotamus.
See. Okay. Now I see why we agree.
Yeah. So like the metaphor is really useful for an introduction.
Right.
You gotta kind of like shelve it quickly.
I don't just think it's useful. I think it's what makes us human. But
yeah.
that's a bigger. Really?
The world is super complex.
Yeah.
We're thinking with meat.
Right.
Okay. We need every advantage we can get.
Sometimes if I think really hard, I hear squish, 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 squish. I'm going to get it for that one later, I'm sure.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. So, all right, that's interesting. So, I'm glad to hear you chime in on that because I was, I kind of thought about. I thought I was alone in that. I thought I was the only one because there's so much focus on kind of this cold, dreary analytical view of everything, and it makes me nervous because sometimes I think we're not leaving room for creativity. And yes, the time to be creative is not when you're doing the final math on something that can kill people.
Yeah.
And unfortunately these days that's everything because let me hear me out. So. And I'm segueing into something else we were talking about. So,
do you remember when the Segway changed our world?
You're segueing my Segway. That's awesome. You're literally segueing my Segway.
Yeah, I mean, the days before the Segway are lost to us. The transportation revolution. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's great. That's all right. I welcome sci-fi future ruminations that don't exist yet. That's, I mean, really.
But I interrupted you.
No, this is our space, man. We need to be in. We need to do that. So, really, the thing that I'm thinking about here. So CPUs. So the problem is that we're not really building solid state devices anymore, and a lot of people that sentence right there has not entered most people's brains. This is one of the reasons I wanted to do this show, because I'm talking to the geeks in Lilac. So I run a group, the Long Island Linux Users Group, and we meet every month and we talk Linux, and it's great. But these are the guys in the engineering mindset. But then I go and talk to someone else, and they just give me the slack jaw. And part of it, and it's like 20 years ago, it was like we were fighting Microsoft and we were the scrappy rebels with hope, and now we're in charge. We're completely in charge
of
anything.
Think that?
Well, everyone else thinks they're in charge.
Okay.
I'm actually not.
I've got a few complaints to bring to you. No,
I didn't think of it that. I thought you just get grapes and fanned and everything, and you're a king. So the real problem is with solid state's going away, and everything has become computer controlled. I mean, we haven't quite got there because some things have engineering requirements, so people will throw circuits on boards, but it's getting to the point where you can, other than auxiliary boards, just to step up and step down electricity or change the electricity type, everything's computer controlled these days. So, I mean, and
you just told everybody to go get a Raspberry Pi.
I did.
You're part of the problem.
I know. Well, soon enough, the robots are going to be the problem. So we're going to need to be able to fight back.
Well, that's a whole other ball.
And when we run out of spray paint, so we can spray paint over their sensors, then we're going to need to start learning how to actually hack them.
But you see, you have to understand how their sensors work, so you know how to defend yourself against the robots. Goes back to my prior thing about the car.
Right. So anyway,
solid state.
Like we're getting away from that, and so the code that wasn't that important before, and people would just stack bricks and not think about what they're doing. We're still using it. So we're still using methodology. We're still using the code. We're still using the same.
It's important to recognize that despite the fact that everybody seems to think that all the useful programming is on the web now.
Right.
APIs
are awesome.
Oh yeah, and it's just like the big cloud of cat videos.
Especially for you, but for everyone also.
Yeah, all the money's in Silicon Valley, and they're just coming up with new and interesting ways of making interfaces to SQL databases, and NoSQL databases for that matter.
Right.
There are still people building real things in the real world, like actual engineers. Are you familiar with PLCs?
Please tell us about it.
All right.
Teach everyone about it.
Programmable logic controllers are the devices that basically run your world.
Right.
There's a fascinating...
For now.
For now.
Yeah.
Well, so if you understand how PLCs work...
Yeah, I know.
It's kind of amusing. Programmable logic controllers are sort of showed up in the 80s during the microprocessor revolution. Just like you said, everything's going to be a microprocessor in the whole 9 yards. But what they actually do is simulate programmable logic, which was a series of switches, logical switches, in cascades.
Right.
Which is technology that dates back to like the 20s and 30s for doing signaling on railroads. What the PLCs in the 80s did was just simulate that. It's the same tech we're using today in 2019. So you have, like, it hasn't changed.
The brick wall.
Yeah. Your S7 controller is still basically a tiny little microprocessor, but when you program it, you are building these cascading logic gates as though it was a railroad yard in the 1930s,
right,
1920s.
Well, all roads are the size of two horses' butts, so look that one up. That's good.
Yeah, the SRB is the width of
missiles of
Roman chariot.
Missile size is based on Roman chariots. Yes.
But if you don't know how to do that, there's no amount of JavaScript and Ruby on Rails and whatever the latest crazy ass, like, what is it, Haskell now, or everybody's talking about. All these crazy languages that keep reinventing the same thing over and over, like, you don't use those to actually build the interfaces that go into our real world.
Right.
There are still very competent engineers who still have to do that. Embedded systems, we're starting to see more generic, like Python, the Raspberry Pi. That's general I/O pins and the whole 9 yards, and you're starting to get sensors, and you're starting to get, like, motor control and things like that. But you're not going to run a nuclear power plant off of that.
Right.
You're not going to run a washing machine off of that.
So far.
You're not going to run a dishwasher off of that. You're not going to run a refrigerator off of that unless it's one of those super smart refrigerators which has a TV built into it.
So I agree and I don't.
Okay.
I want to say something about this, and then I'll let you keep going off on it. Which is, and I hope you don't lose your point, but the...
I am so dull, I've never had a
You're very sharp. So that's why, you know what? I couldn't interrupt someone else like I can interrupt you, because I know you'll come right back to it. So I think that gives us a false sense of security, because I wasn't pointing at the wine, but that's a great idea. So I think that gives us a false sense of security, because there's the opportunity for chaos with lots of little things. And a lot of people are like, oh, it's good. Well, I'm so afraid of the toaster army, But, I mean, if you haven't seen Fast and the Furious 7, go see Fast and the Furious 7. That's real.
Okay.
All right. No, you haven't seen it?
I have not seen a single Fast or Furious
I wish
movie.
I had a screen I could bring it up on right now, because it's just one scene. It's spectacular. So there's this over-the-top hacker who's, by the way, stunningly beautiful. I'm not saying the hackers can't be stunningly beautiful, but, she's a little too made up to be, I don't know how, let me see how I can put this. If you're about to launch a anti-superpower attack against a country, maybe you don't want to spend an hour and a half on your makeup that day. Just that day. You can choose whatever path you want. We're politically correct, so I got to be careful here. You can choose whatever path you want, but I know it's a movie, but it was a little over the top.
It's
how
a
dressed
Fast
up
and the
she
Furious
was.
movie.
Thank you, you bailed me out. All right, anyway. So
a little over the top is their bread and butter.
She's this crazy hacker, and she controls an army of vehicles. Sorry, I should just put a movie spoiler disclaimer on the website so people know. Just don't turn it on. If you want to watch any movies ever, going to enjoy them.
If you're interested in media.
If you're interested in media. Pop culture is really powerful because everybody shares it, right? So I can use an analogy here.
That's where your metaphors get crazy again, because people seem to think the real world works like it does in movies. But neither here nor
there. And it usually doesn't, but this time it was right.
Okay.
The only thing they did wrong is that they had the Crown Vic and the army of of cars, which does not have a CAN
It
bus.
is not going to have a CAN. No.
Right, but all the other cars they were right. They have CAN buses, and it is totally realistic for someone to control an army. She took over Manhattan, isolated a Soviet limo, and controlled the nuclear football, and stole it. And this could happen. And people going back to the point that I was originally saying, is people are worried about the the nuclear failure, the nuclear plant failure because of a poorly designed code, top-down code instead of bottom-up code. But what does it matter if you could just get the nukes themselves by isolating a city?
I can tell you what the nuclear launch code is.
Go on.
The PAL. It's
Yeah.
000000.
Right.
I think it's 7 zeros actually.
Okay. Is that what they?
That's the thing you need to put into the weapon in order to arm it.
Well, it's been nice, folks. It was a good show. SWAT will be here any minute. So
it's 000000.
all right. So are we talking 1950s here, or are we talking the current crop of ICBMs?
As far as I'm aware, they hadn't changed it.
Right, excellent.
But they put in the PALs in, I believe, the 60s, and it was required.
Right.
And because they want to be able to, use the weapons in an emergency,
Right.
they set the code to something that everybody can remember.
I just watched Doctor
Seriously,
Strangelove,
this
so this
stuff
is
up.
right up there.
Seriously, look this up. That is the code.
Right.
Now that's not the actual. That is not the authentication mechanism where the president, they crack open the pin and all the rest of it. But if you're
the two keys with the secret code,
Titan, all the rest.
You got to tune to the right channel, and
Right. It's the authentication system is still a one-time pad and all that. Regardless, but if you're actually standing at a weapon and you're the guy who's supposed to deploy it and arm it, you type in the thing, and then the logic within the weapon, the code for it is all zeros.
If you want to have a human firewall, his hands are going to be shaking, he's going to be sweating, he's going to go crazy, he's going to be thinking about his dog and his cat and his family, and he's going to, and his brain is just going to go blank, because that's what our brains do, and we feel that.
Anyway, hop onto FAS.org, Federation of American Scientists, and you can look into all this stuff.
Hop onto FAS.org.
Yes.
Play along now. And that way there's a crowd and they don't catch you because everyone's doing it at the same time.
But we have a sophisticated system to prevent accidental or intentional, without authorization, arming of nuclear weapons, and the code is all zeros.
Right.
Because you want to be able to arm them.
So I have something.
Which is where negative and positive control, I could go on for hours about negative and positive control.
I have something good on this too. I sat with someone who was working on improving the networking for the net that's used for the weapons.
Oh, that's a terrible idea.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't easy, and he explained why. But you know what? I'm going to skip that one. We're going to go into the next thing.
Yeah, good call.
Because I want to put it all in one show.
Yeah.
So yeah.
The big nuke show.
The nuke show, right? It become the nuke show.
That sounds like fun.
We nuked ourselves in the first episode.
Yeah. That was actually one of my minor.
No metaphor.
Yeah. Yeah, when I was on Off the Hook, we were talking about nuclear reactors and emergency procedures, and I had actually said, because I was moving so fast and I was so excited, I said scramble the reactor as opposed to scram the reactor. I apparently didn't even recognize it, and somebody called in within 5 minutes. Just, the term is scram. I'm like, I know. It's you said scramble like an egg.
I you know what? That's why I welcome comments, and I'll probably read them until we actually get popular, right? But after, right? Because I just I don't want to let the entire troll kingdom storm the gates and completely distract us.
We make errors from time to time.
Yeah.
Even unintentional. I know the right term. Do you know it's an acronym?
What?
Scram?
Scram? No.
I forget the entire acronym, but the AM is Axeman. Because
why?
So the very first piles, the
Axeman. It sounds like a heavy metal song.
So the very first reactor piles, the control rods were hoisted by ropes. And so if there was an emergency, you had to cut the ropes. Mm-hmm. And so the scram procedure was literally, there was an axe, and you would hack at the ropes to cut them so that the rods would fall.
Oh, that's crazy.
Yeah.
So hopefully they had this sense. So this is an old reactor. Is this the Type 1 ones, like the GE kind of style plants?
Oh, pressurized water? No, this is like way, way back, like 1940s, 50s. They're trying to experiment with. They're using frickin' ropes.
Right, yeah. Oh, okay, so this is like the Marie Curie days where they like didn't even know it was killing them.
Like Chicago pile stuff, sort of.
Yeah, okay.
Like
right.
that level of very early days. Like hand-built or hand-carved graphite.
What's this growth
box
on my arm? That's so strange. Why would that happen?
Oh, they understood radiation.
Oh, okay.
It was the early days.
Well, I don't know. Did they really? I mean, like, I'm so. It's crazy. This is like just wow. Is this fun or what? I love this constant stream of Segways. Yeah. So I just it drives me crazy.
Do you remember back before the Segway transformed transportation?
Oh no, the Segway is going to become a shtick.
Don't you remember? I mean, all the news articles were out there about how like we would have to remake cities.
Yeah.
That within a matter of years, cities would be completely different. We'd have like priority Segway lanes, walking. Walking would become a thing of the past. And today, as we don't walk down sidewalks,
I know.
I took my Segway in.
Well, that's how I knew you were Neo-Luddite, because you didn't come in a Segway.
Yes, I left my Segway. I have a coal-burning Segway.
We're the only two uncool people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We live in
everyone else is way cooler.
We live in a Segway future.
Us, everyone else, and the mole cops. Yeah. It's an army of blarts out there saying, "Hey, man, don't diss my Segway."
Yeah, I just remember. I may be the only person who remembers the hype around the Segway.
Right. No, I remember. It was just.
All you have to do is say, "Do you remember the days before the Segway changed our lives?" Everyone's like, "Oh yeah, I remember that."
It seems like every year the internet's around, I spend more time going, "What?"
Yeah.
And a lot of people are arguing that society is getting worse. So there's two ways you can look at this. One is that
there's an infinity of ways to look at something, I assure you.
I'm totally higaliating you right now. So no, you're right. If anybody tries to offer to you a binary choice, demand a third one. So well done, sir. But there's two ways I can bring up to look at this, which is one is it's become this terrible feedback loop where people are just bringing out the worst in each other, and the internet is making the world a worse place, and that's why we're seeing so much craziness on it. And I agree. Don't worry. But that's when you say it out loud, it sounds crazy, but I think a lot of people implicitly assume that, because a lot of people are like, it's so much worse than it used to be. And a lot of parents, for instance, don't let their kids go outside because they think the world is a worse place. But I don't really think it is. Here's an opposing view, which is really what I think. Put that on the floor. Sorry about that. Anyway, so an opposing view, which is that it really was always this bad. And the thing that makes more sense to me is it was always this bad, and the internet gave us the ability to look at it and say, oh, okay, I never saw this before, but now it's in plain sight. Because it didn't fit in a soundbite on a news program before, and it didn't, it was on page 53, so even if they wrote an article on it, nobody would read it, and that's assuming anybody even picked it up. Again, the journalism skills aren't always the same as the tech skills, hence why we're in a technocracy, so.
It's...
What do you think? Why is it that when people say, not even saying it is getting worse, but when people say it seems to be getting worse, are they right or are they wrong, and why?
They say worse, but I think what they really mean is confusing or out of control or chaotic. Previous generations, if you wanted to know a thing, you had to go out of your way to seek it out. There was a cultivated set of knowledge that was readily available, whether it be current events through the mechanism of journalism, whether it would be standard histories as presented in schools, whether it be it's even engineering approaches. Like there's a set way of calculating, different material design sorts of things.
Right.
what the internet has allowed you to do is at a very low cost present ideas that don't necessarily fit with that general narrative, get them out there, and make them very easy to find. And so it's not that these things were previously hiding or being hidden. There was just no economic value behind broadcasting them.
Right.
You know, it wasn't
It didn't
popular.
sell.
Exactly. You can't sell books
sells?
with a crazy conspiracy theory. You know, you can't. Well, yeah.
Keep going.
But you know, ideas that were perhaps dismissed 100 years ago stayed dead. Now, because you have the tool to do the research very quickly, and because the cost of putting out a crazy idea is so low that you're constantly being confronted.
You mean like this show?
Like this show. You're constantly being confronted by things that would ordinarily never even appear in front of you.
Right.
And so it weakens the core narrative that people seem to need. We don't do well with chaos. We like order.
Why do people like order like that so much?
Because the world is such a complex place. The world is such a chaotic place that if you have a story, a core thing upon which you can lean, you can accept new information. We're just being bombarded at this point. And again, because we're not taught how to think and how to discern and how to approach the world in a methodical way to make progress, now you've got all these ideas and you don't know which one's right.
Right.
You don't know what's true. You don't, previously you just trust certain sources, and these sources are being constantly exposed as having their own agenda or trying to manipulate things or present a narrative because, oh, well, here's the other side of that story, which you'd ordinarily never see.
Right.
But it's like, oh, wait, it's right there. Like, well, can I, And so I don't necessarily think worse. I think people find the world much more confusing, much more chaotic, much more...
That's a great word. I like that word, confusing. Definitely people find it more confusing.
There's just more out there, and they lack the tools to really discern what isn't, A, what isn't is not important, B, what of the things that are important, what isn't is not true. See how to, even communicate with other people about that. And so you wind up in the situation where also we can form communities that ordinarily wouldn't have come together, which is super powerful.
Immediately into my mind, Slashdot. But, it was pretty good in the early days.
I never read it. I'd been Slashdotted 2 or 3 times, but I was never actually on Slashdot.
Right. Slashdot was a website. It still is a website. It's still very popular, but...
Oh, God, it's 2019, and we'd have to describe what Slashdot was.
Yeah. No, but I mean, it's true. What if someone was born in 2000? In 2000, people were on Slashdot, and you got Slashdotted, and your server melted. Yeah. Basically, you got 20,000 hits in 20 minutes, and it was the Web 1.0 those days, and it was just one. Melted. It was just one.
I've been Slashdotted a few times.
My hardware sucked. I was killed. I was immediately murdered. Someone put up a copy, so it was my book actually.
Yeah, I'll do it.
So
there used to be a thing called the C10K problem.
I'm actually
you don't even remember.
I don't even remember.
10,000 concurrent web connections.
No, I never. You know what?
Yeah, servers.
I never kept a server alive long enough during a Slashdotting.
It was.
Or it just got patched and I didn't even recognize it.
There were resource-related issues to how the predominant web servers at the time could not handle 10,000 concurrent connections, and it was called the C10K problem.
Really? Yeah. Okay, I'm going to look that up. That's great.
There you go. Terrible internet history.
I do not claim to know everything.
No, that's fine.
And yeah, that's really interesting. I'm going to check that out.
Old school.
You know what?
Engineering.
I patch maniacally with my systems. I keep them updated. I patch them. And every system I've been in charge of, I patch. I didn't if you go back far enough, it didn't at one point. Learned a lesson, and then immediately after that, no longer needed to learn the lesson anymore, and patched avidly. So I probably just patched it and didn't realize it was an issue.
It was a real thing.
Yeah. So, where were we? We were talking about. Oh yeah. So you were talking about how they're just confused. So
I'm not saying people are confused. I say the world is a confusing place.
Right. Well, I'm not saying that their confusion wasn't inevitable. Right. You know, I mean, so I can go. There's two ways I can go with this. I can tell you about.
There's an infinity of ways you can go with this.
You are so rebellious. I mean, I'm proud of you. That is great.
Listen,
you know,
when you arrive at a fork in the road, tear across the median.
yes, that's
what I do.
Right. You know, I think my next truck will be a Ford Raptor because there's nothing like just pulling off the parkway and not even slowing down.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'm kind of like confused as what this. I can talk about the complexity horizon, which is an idea that I had about. I mean, it's not the idea may not be new, but I think the name is, which is this idea that there's a point at which it's no longer possible. The rate of change in a particular topic is so fast, it's no longer possible to talk about the topic anymore. The only way you can communicate about it is in code, because the code is changing faster than human language can.
So there's this science fiction novel I read 20 years ago. It's called Tomorrow and Tomorrow. Mm-hmm. And I barely remember it. And in my recollection, it's good.
Right.
Which always makes me afraid, because I have a feeling if I reread it,
like the Smurfs?
If I reread it, I'm going to realize it's terrible. But one of the points, this guy basically travels into the future through a variety of mechanisms, and he's like encountering different ages of humanity for a variety of reasons. Mm-hmm. And he hits one age in which technical specialties have become they've become so specialized that they literally cannot communicate with one another. Mm-hmm. They just exist in this nexus of jargon. So like your insect biologists have developed effectively their own lexicon and their own language just to talk amongst themselves, because it's gotten so finely detailed that they invent all these new terms that nobody else even bothers to learn.
Right.
And so everybody kind of speaks common, but when you get two or three people at the same
technocracy. On topic. Yes.
But when you get like two or three people who are associated with that specialty,
yes,
they kind of do this like hive mind thing where they have their own language, and
interesting.
You're kind of starting to see it. Like we used slime and STEM and all the rest of this earlier today.
Right.
It's like they're acronyms. If you don't know what STEM is, you think it's part of a plant. If you do, then you understand in technology. You know, all the rest of the stuff. Within the military, they've got acronyms up the proverbial wazoo,
right,
which I'm sure is an acronym for something. But you know, in tech, we've got a lot of
FUBAR's my favorite. Thank you for that. Thank you for FUBAR.
Yeah. In tech, we've got all these like terms that the layman has no idea what they are, and you can kind of see that evolve potentially into like this isolating groupthink sort of thing. And even in politics, I mean, there are terms for law. You can throw out a phrase of like some major case, like Smith versus Jones,
right,
and then like all the lawyers go
Smith v. Jones,
Smith v. Jones, and all the lawyers go and you're sitting there like
their acronyms just all have V's in the middle.
No.
Right, yeah,
like,
they're doing it too. You're right. So, well, pretty soon it'll be the computers doing that for them,
which is even better.
They'll just be throwing this v that, that v this v that.
Law, oh God, law.
Technology. Case law by bot farm.
Yeah, technology and law is one of those like weird things where we've got so much that can happen.
Right.
In terms of making our judicial system back to what it should be.
Right.
But none of those people have any idea how to program. None of them have any idea how to use the technology in order to make their lives easier and to improve the conditions for defendants and people who have to engage with the legal system.
Right.
So that's one of the frustrating things. I had a very long talk with somebody about that recently.
Yeah. So I mean, it seems to me like I don't want to. Yeah, we can come back to that other thing later. We're gonna need so many more shows. We're gonna need more shows. Anyway, case law is it's interesting because there's so much. Most people don't. So in a way, that's a perfect example of the legal technocracy, right? You know, of course, lawyers are technocracy, and they warned us about it at the beginning of the. So technocracy itself isn't new, you know. This idea. I mean, you can easily find references to the word itself is its meaning as we're using it now 100 years ago. In particular, the one I found was that stockbrokers were using it to talk about financial instruments in the 20s, you know, and saying nobody understands what we're doing, you know, which was probably true at the time.
So the quants of the 20s.
The quants of the 20s, which is kind of an interesting time to point at, but whatever. Hopefully there's not any precedent there.
I wasn't pointing at anything at all.
Yeah. Oh, I'd love to come back to your analogy about how to screw a market. Not your analogy, your factual instructions, but maybe not the entire apocalypse in one episode.
Okay.
So
we've already got new codes. Why not?
Yeah, new codes. Why not go for market death? So the case law is the technocratic language of lawyers, and the problem is that it kind of becomes this unwieldy monster where only a handful of people represent it. So it almost becomes a good model for how to deal with the technocracy. Like if you're looking at the confusion created by the confusing state of things, not to pick on anyone and say they're confused.
Well, picking on is how people deal with it.
Well, right. Well, don't get me started.
I've got a great story for that.
Okay, go.
So I was asked by the New York County Lawyers Association several years ago, probably late 90s, and it was a forum on cryptography and privacy, and it was a panel of 6 people.
Right.
They had a detective from the NYPD. They had somebody from the Manhattan DA's office, specializing in electronic crimes. They had an agent from the FBI, the electronic crimes division at New York field office, and a federal prosecutor, and some guy from the ACLU, and me. And we're all talking before this thing.
So you guys are like the motley crew.
Right, and we're all just kind of chatting beforehand, and you know, I'm talking with the cops and the FBI guy and the ACLU guy, and we finally shuffle in, and they do the introductions, and and then there's Isaac the hacker, and the 4 of them all turn. And so
this is awkward.
Yeah. Did I say anything? So we each had like 5 minutes to kind of talk. And I couldn't resist. I had to open with a lawyer joke. I'm basically in front of the New York County Bar Association, and it was like,
tell it to laugh.
Yeah. What do you call a lawyer buried up to his neck in sand? Time to order more sand. And, you know, thank you very much. And it got that level of groan. And I said, all right, bear with me. There was a purpose.
Did you hear any safeties go off?
Yeah. Bear with me. You know, I have a point behind this.
No, it's fine. Go for it.
Well, that's what I told them, and I'm telling you.
Nice.
They said, who here owns an automobile? Who here owns an automobile? All right, you go to your mechanic. He tells you that the flux capacitor is broken and you're going to need to repair it. How many just implicitly trust your mechanic? You just sign the check and you're on your way. Like nobody raises their hand. So, anybody here ever been sick? Have you been sick? Okay, you go to your doctor. He tells you need to have your leg amputated. Do you just immediately, trust your doctor, or do you go seek a second opinion? All right. Anybody here have a computer? Oh no. Actually, I jumped ahead of myself. You know, it's like, who here have ever had their client, you lawyers, ask to explain something or not trust your immediate decision on like how you should approach something? It's like, all of our clients, they just completely disbelieve us. Right? And how many of you have a computer, you know, and it breaks? Like, how many of you trust the guy who comes to fix your computer or a computer hacker? It's like the common person has these jokes, lawyer jokes, and all the rest of it, because these are horribly complex systems. That if you don't understand how to even begin to approach them, they're like magic. You know, an automobile, like lots of stuff going on. If you're not a mechanic, like you are powerless, and you are in you have to deal with the mechanic. You know,
right.
Doctor. You don't. If you could fix your own body, you wouldn't be going to the doctor. The law is constantly evolving. Like at least a human body, you know where the heart goes and like where the kidneys are and all the rest of that. You know, it's very complex, very organic, and all the rest of that in the chemistry sense of organic. the doctor knows things that you don't, and you have to trust them. You're powerless. The lawyer, the law, huge, very complex. You have to trust the lawyer. Powerless. Your computer, you don't know how it works. You have to trust the hacker. You're powerless. And so that lack of trust, that the lack of agency over your own destiny in dealing with these complex systems causes things like lawyer jokes, like the mechanic joke.
That's us in the joke, by the way.
Yes.
Yeah.
It
hasn't happened yet, but give it a few more years, it will be there.
Those crazy hackers and all the rest of it. And I thought I did really well because I actually had a room full of lawyers go, like that is
well delivered.
Yeah. So it was just a little offhand comment you had is like, mockery or some. It's just that's how people deal with it.
Right.
Their lack of agency, their lack of power, and the lack of understanding. And so when you have a group of people who are able to converse at that level, and you're an outsider and you're looking in, jargon is off-putting. Jargon is frightening.
So I think the evidence is demonstrable that civilization is completely irrational. And this is actually it's terrifying to think about it, but I think it's true. Because we have to depend on people all the time. And the bigger society gets and the bigger civilization gets, the more you have to trust other people.
Civilization is work.
It's a ton of work.
Part of it's organic, but it's also you have to have people who want to be a part of it, and who pull their weight, as it were.
Right.
Who recognize, yes, I have this set of rights and these resources, and I benefit by engaging in a society in such a way that perhaps I restrain my rights a little bit, perhaps I use these resources in a way that other people can sort of augment, and we work together in order to build a thing.
Right.
And there are ways to organize a civilization successfully, and there are ways to organize a civilization unsuccessfully.
But why? Why do it?
Why do it at all?
Yeah, why organize? Why not just move to the sticks and someplace where there's no nuclear power plants and hide out?
And you can
get off my property.
Yeah, and you can totally do that.
I say that with love. I say that with absolute love.
Lots of love, and there are nations in the world where that is just how it works.
Right.
There are ages in which that's just how it works. But there's a benefit to specializing in an economy. You are good at building chairs. This guy is good at growing chickens.
Right.
And also eggs.
Right.
And this guy is good at processing water, and that one's good at building engines.
Right.
When you're able to specialize and engage in a market economy where people's talents and their strengths are able to produce more than each individual, you benefit.
Right, though they have to invest in that position.
Yeah.
And then, of course, whenever you invest in something, whether it's investing the time to become that doctor, become that lawyer, become that technician, become that engineer, and you're taking a risk because people can come and take it away from you. The barbarians can come storming through the gates.
Sure.
And
or you realize the thing that you've invested in is not actually worthwhile, or is not worth anything on the market.
So I want to open people's minds to the possibility. I'm not saying it's true, but you're welcome to tell me I'm wrong, that maybe it isn't actually logical. That the logical conclusion is we're doomed, and that the reason that we keep that we keep not being doomed is because everybody keeps doing the irrational thing and just looking out for each other. It's in a way that, think about it as humans as lovable, cute creatures that do the right thing even when it doesn't make sense for themselves.
Sure. I like that.
Okay.
I'm one of those rare people who think that deep down people are innately good.
Right.
And
I agree.
And the expression of this goodness is often in being selfish.
Right.
And recognizing that me wanting things is not necessarily bad.
Am I going to ruin your reputation by making you say that?
No.
Because you're not going to be able to do a maniacal laugh and walk into the room from the shadows.
I can do
maybe with entering. Please don't.
Yeah, no, I can do the maniacal. I mean,
well, we should all do it together.
The Buddhist is of the opinion that a desire is the root of all suffering. But I would modify. Far be it from me to correct the Buddha.
With 1,000 exceptions, by the way. Yeah.
But I think
few.
irrational desire is the root of all suffering.
Yes.
To want a thing for a reason is not a problem, really.
Right.
You know, if it's obtainable, if you can engage in an exchange with somebody in order to achieve it, because when you trade, both parties are better.
Right. Right.
And when you do that, when you do those trades, and when you come together and you make the environment in which that can happen, you are building cities.
You just described reason, by the way. I think reason itself.
Well,
right?
This dives into deep economy.
Right.
You know, the rational actor, the rational person who's engaging in an economy. But you don't have to be rational.
Right.
Right. Like, you can assign value to things.
Clearly not.
Yeah, you can assign value to things and have a perfectly operational market economy based on rational desires, meaning I need food, I need water, I need all the rest of it.
If there's a market,
but I also need sneakers.
If there's a market and you're not rational, smack.
Well, yeah.
Smack.
Yeah.
Smack. Okay. All right. I'll be rational.
The unseen hand,
right.
will come and figure it out.
I spent too much on this. Smack.
Yeah. And you need to have that happen. So there's you can be irrational and entirely. I mean, who needs shiny rocks?
Right.
And yet we have a diamond market, which is entirely manipulated, and that's a whole other side of it.
Right.
But it's interesting.
Who needs currency at all? Right. And currency itself is...
Currency itself solves a problem. It is a more efficient way of handling trade than barter.
Right.
Like, it emerges out of having a market.
Right.
And so
I have to say, you really are doing great at following me down the rabbit hole. This is not specifically...
I like your red and blue pill there.
Thanks. I thought you... I know...
Does your wife know you took her earring box for that?
Sooner or later, someone's going to come in here and eat one of them.
Oh.
And it's going to be funny. Because who knows what's really in there.
Ooh.
Yeah, don't spoil it.
Bullion and, I don't know. Chicken. Where are we in time?
Well, isn't that the point of the red pill? You don't actually know.
Yeah, what's going to happen on the other end of it.
So I don't know if do you want to discuss your market pollution theory?
Market pollution.
So I actually have a term for it.
My market pollution.
So the idea that basically, so it's the more generic concept is a poison well.
Okay. Right.
So poisoning the well of the markets, and so enough do-good stuff. Let's talk a little bit about the darkness. So how would you poison? How would you manipulate a market? How would you control it? I'm not necessarily just talking about. I'm glad that you're on board with me that currency isn't necessarily shiny metal, right? It can be other things.
Yeah, it's an emergent property of them.
It can be code.
It can be anything.
It could be digidollars. It could be.
Oh, you want to go down the Bitcoin realm?
It could be encrypted crypto dollars.
Sure.
Right. It could be anything. It could be likes on YouTube, right?
That is a frightening thought, but sure.
Yeah. Well, that's why I wanted to bring up Black Mirror. I'm going to start spoiling it soon, so you got a few episodes, and then it's coming out. So watch all of them. Anyway, yes, yeah.
I've seen two.
They're really dark. So, I think the right recipe, if you don't want to be polluted with depression and sadness, is flip back and forth before the Orville and Black Mirror, right?
Because the Orville.
The Orville is like Star Trek, but with curses.
And
sarcasm.
Star Trek has gone super dark and just sad.
Right.
I mean,
I'm talking. I stopped paying attention after Next Generation. Sorry.
Great for Mr. McFarlane to he got Next Generation. He understood what was there, telling a story, using the series as a vehicle, but also having fun. Mm-hmm. That aspect of it is really nice, where it's it's lighter, in a way that just makes the characters feel more real. as opposed to like the perfect military robots that are, commander. I mean, hell, the Next Generation even had a robot as an officer.
Right. They had literally.
But yeah, like they turn into caricatures. Regardless, I'm sorry.
I do not understand, Captain.
Yeah.
No matter how many times I watch water boiling, it always takes the same amount of time.
It's like, oh, thanks, Dave. Anyway, Black Mirror and back to currency. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So I'm just curious if you had any, it occurs to me that your case, so you made this case, this is an Icon, one of the Icon panels, and it was...
a long time ago.
Yeah. That all you have to do to subvert a market is just start introducing corruption into it here and there over time and let it accumulate.
The trust issue for the stock market.
Right. So it seems to me this is a special case of a poison well. So what do you think about poison wells in general? Not just in markets, but also in code.
I don't like my wells poisoned.
Yeah, well, yeah,
I like
me
to
either.
drink my water. Yeah. Well, that was a story where I was.
What's your poison?
Yeah, pick your poison.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're good.
Okay. So that particular event was I was talking to a conference where they occasionally will wind up with a speaker who had to cancel at the last moment, and they'll be like, Isaac, talk to us for 20 minutes.
Right.
And I get on.
That is a very rare skill.
Yeah,
being able to just get up in front of a crowd and go.
Yeah, I come up to the podium and I'm like, does anybody have a question that they'd actually want answered, or should I talk about a thing? And it's like, what keeps you up at night? And this was from a financial market group. And I said,
does it still keep you up at night?
This thing I'm about to describe?
Yeah.
Well, they fixed the particular thing that I was discussing. But,
okay.
Generally speaking. So markets are very stock markets.
Right.
Not like not a capitalist economy market. The very generalist thing of you walk into Walmart, I exchange money for goods and services and sort of market, but like the stock market.
Right.
The New York Stock Exchange, in particular. You have a small population of people who behave semi-rationally, if not completely irrationally. Well, I mean, you laugh, but I would strongly recommend the book A Random Walk Down Wall Street to really kind of get an idea of how things work inside.
Well, we have the advantage because we live in New York, so we see this stuff up
literally
close. We work for these companies. We work side by side with people who have worked there or do work there, so we know.
Just turn on Bloomberg TV for about 5 or 10 minutes, and you want jargon. You want a subculture that has its own language. But I said, all right, well, let me throw you out a scenario. I get into a major trading firm through evil hacker means.
Excellent.
And I, today, buy 3M in such a way that I drive the price up 10 points. It was a legitimate trade that one of this brokerage firm's customers made, but I manipulate it in such a way that by the time it hit the market, the number that the customer had associated with their account is different than what actually hit the order execution, and I covered it up internal to the brokerage system so that it tucked into a happy little other account. Okay. I do the same thing tomorrow, except it's 10 points in the other direction. 2 days later, I move it, maybe 75 points. I just diddle with the numbers a little bit. Like Superman 3, the half penny thing to add up the thing.
Right.
But I'm not doing
Office Space.
Yeah, right. I'm not doing the half pennies. I'm just manipulating the data.
Right.
6 weeks later, I splash 10%, 1,000 points.
Now, why do you do that part?
I do that part in order to get noticed.
Credibility.
Well, not necessarily credibility. It's
notoriety.
Well, somebody hacked into this system, and what that spawns is an audit. And what that audit will discover is that for the past 6 weeks, the price of 3M has been manipulated by a non-market actor using evil hacker means.
This is hypothetical.
Yeah, it's just totally hypothetical.
3M, please don't sue us.
Yeah.
Or New York Stock Exchange.
I just like their symbol, MMM. I chose them, Widget Co.
Right. Yeah, no, that's fine.
Right, but I mean, even take the evil hacker thing.
It's the difference between a forecast and a call to action.
Sure.
I find myself saying that a lot lately online.
Well,
this is a forecast. I'm not telling people to do this. Is what I think will happen.
I mean, this isn't a thing that
this
really...
This is a forecast of a risk. This is a risk analysis.
Yeah, the internal mechanisms prevent this sort of thing much more readily today than they did at the time I was discussing this.
Right.
Where you could like manipulate data on the wire is figured out. But it doesn't really matter the details. The point is that you create a trail surreptitiously, and then you make a very obvious thing happen, which causes the investigation that goes back and recognizes, oh wow, this data has been completely manipulated over the past 6 weeks. What happens then? Anybody who has dealt with that stock, you probably just accept the price minus the my 1,000-point obvious, like ta-da!
Right.
Do you just accept that price, or do you try to unwind all of the manipulation all the way back for the past 6 weeks? What basically happens is lawsuits launch like ICBMs at the end of war games.
It's the doomsday machine.
Yeah. where like clients start suing the brokerage house, the different brokerage houses sue each other, like all the rest of the guys. The reality is what's going to happen is they're just going to declare this is the price today, and anything that happened in the past was all screwed up, and you know what, the market had a price, and that's what we're going to go with.
So what does that declaration do?
What happens is the confidence in the market is no longer inviolate, right? The stock market, the stock price is no longer necessarily a thing that clears on the market. The client has become separated from the price at the exchange. And so the confidence drops, and that becomes a problem. Is it a long-term problem? I don't personally think so. I think that gets fixed. I think that it is able to be rebuilt. But what it does do is say these computers may not necessarily be doing the right thing.
Right.
You had flash crashes, and they still happen occasionally, particularly as we go into the quant era, where you have automated trading, where your actual broker or your trader is sitting there and they're just kind of driving these computers, and the computers are what's really making the decisions, using AI and all the rest of these sorts of algorithms.
These days, yes, not in the past, but
not in the past. But. And that's a thing that can still happen. But the scenario I was throwing out at this conference at that time, like, people in the audience were like, "Oh, that would be a really bad day."
So let me introduce a new bad day, aside from what you said, on top of what you said, which is that the algorithms themselves could do the same thing.
Sure.
They could lose confidence in each other, or themselves, and say, "I no longer know what's going on." And if that happens, there may be a contingency plan.
I need to bail out of my position, and now everybody sells, and you wind up with.
And of course, that's what people think happens with flash crashes. Is the algos all feed off each other. Everyone's like, "Oh, it's a conspiracy. Some company's selling, and they have a backroom deal." Or the algos just panic. And go to a safe mode.
He bails. They try to bail out. They close the position as quickly as they can. But what's fascinating is it's been theorized, and I have no idea because I'm not on the exchanges at all, and I'm not writing software for this. But if you know that this is a thing can happen, you can write an algorithm that looks for the flash crash and buys the discounted inventory.
Right. I mean, it's a legitimate trade. You just have to trick your enemy, your opponent, into making a bad move.
But that winds up being that's a dynamic exchange at that point. And so it's fine again. Like the system can survive this stuff, and it always does. Right? Like,
you got to be careful. People are going to think you're a capitalist.
I am.
I know, I am too.
Okay. But not, I mean, capitalist.
It's a dirty word these days.
Yeah, it's a dirty word, but it's because people.
All this talk about how markets have meaningful information,
But it's this. There is at the root of all this politics and all this economics and all the rest of it is two notions of approaching the world. The first is that we don't have any idea how anything works, and that the world, economics, humans, civilization, whole nine yards, is just emergent from the chaos. That if you get enough stuff and you just kind of let it do what it's supposed to do, order will arise. And solutions will be found because that's how it works. The other side is we know everything. If we only had all the information, we could engineer all of this to make it much more efficient. And by exerting control and design and architecture, ironically, the people who tend to believe this are the ones who don't structure and don't design their software and don't do all the rest of the things that we were talking about very early in the podcast.
So in other words, they're running with their hands waving in the air going, whee!
Yeah, it's like science and
I've worked with them.
Math and engineering can solve all of this, and that we humans are able to organize everything and create the world in which we want to live.
Yeah,
and I think that is the primary conflict in the world. You've got your capitalists and your communists. You've got your conservatives and your progressives. You've got command and emergence.
Right.
And
so you're a Babylon 5 fan.
I've never seen Babylon 5.
Oh, okay. No, I'll spoil it.
Yeah.
There's a good and evil component later in the series. Anyway, keep. Babylon 5 fans are going, yes, I know what he's talking about right now.
Good and evil is a whole other ballgame.
Right.
Like that.
Well, actually, let me be more specific. Evil is portrayed as, chaos is portrayed as evil, and order is portrayed as good. But of course, that's not the case at all, is it?
Well, I'm describing two kinds of order is the point.
Right. Well, everything's order. Even chaos takes planning. You can't have true chaos without a lot of planning.
I mean, the notion that capitalism and the sort of emergent order isn't real order is false.
Right.
Like,
agreed.
Life is emergent order out of the chaos of the primordial soup.
Right.
It did not require
cities are part of nature.
Thinking meat in order to make it happen. Yeah.
Thinking meat.
That. Let kind of nature do what it's supposed to do within economics itself. This is the Austrian school versus the Keynesians. The Austrian school is we don't know nothing. we don't know how this works. We can't know how this works. What we can do is we can observe stuff, primarily at the micro level, and then based on what we sort of observe at the micro level, we can kind of see what happens at the macro level. The Keynesian is, well, we can simplify all of this. Aggregate demand, aggregate supply, and then we can tweak a couple of little knobs, and that's an economy. I kind of drift to the ignorance.
Right.
I embrace ignorance.
Right.
I recognize that I've got some tools that I can use in order to maybe predict some things, that maybe I can start engineering against the odds and bring a tiny little bit of order into the world and hope that in bringing a little bit of order to the world in combination with some other bits of order that more order emerges from that, as opposed to, well, if I had all the information available to me, we could perfectly simulate this and become far more efficient. It's no, nature figured it out. Let nature do its thing.
Right.
Just let it happen.
Right.
It's ugly. It's gross.
So what do you think when someone comes in there and they go, try to push it a little bit? How much pushing is okay?
It depends on how the pushing happens. If you're a participant pushing, good for you.
Right.
If you are trying to impose a will by usurping somebody else's resources in order to do that, then you've got a problem.
Right.
It's the difference between the regulator coming in and saying, I am going to use the power that is vested in me by the population in this government in order to make you act a certain way, or, hey, I'm just here like everybody else, and I've got $1 million just like you do, and I'm going to try to get you to do what you want to do.
Right.
If you coming to the table with your resources and applying only those, good for you. If you're trying to steal somebody else's resources and then exert your will over them, that's where it starts to fall apart for me.
Right. So, the counter argument would be, what is steal? Right. Yeah. when is it really stealing?
Steal's pretty easy to figure out.
Yeah. Well, the easy case of steal is easy to figure out. The hard case isn't.
What's the hard case of stealing?
The hard case of stealing is it's a service fee.
Ooh.
Right.
Yeah. Am I getting something for the service fee?
Yeah, but maybe not enough.
Oh. Okay. Yeah. Do I have a choice to not participate in this at all?
No, that depends.
Well, if I don't, then that's called stealing.
Right. So where is the choice, right? When the cost of sure, you can not participate, but the cost of the next product up is twice as high. But if you scale twice as big, it equals out.
Well, then you come in. This is
so it becomes a tyranny of scale, is what I'm getting at.
Well, this is knocking on the door of public good. What is a public good?
Right.
I've had a little too much wine. But it's...
Your kindness is showing. Look out.
Non-rival and non-exclusive.
I got to get the heart in the cooler.
Yeah. Non-rival and non-exclusive. So like defense as a concept, which again, I hate goofy concepts like defense.
Yeah.
But, defense. Okay, well, we all got to pay into it. Mm-hmm. Why? Because, well, if you pay $100...
Pirates.
Yeah, if you pay $100 and you pay $50, he doesn't get twice as much defense as you do.
Right.
If you don't pay anything and you pay $50, you don't get any less defense because you just happen to be where you are.
Right.
Like, the Department of Defense is not going to show up as like, okay, well, you can attack New York. You can't attack New York except for Matt's house. We don't defend him. He didn't pay this week.
I sound like a rich man with a tropical island.
Yeah, he didn't pay this week. So like,
I didn't get protector status.
Yeah, so like, if you want to really finally target your weapon at his house, we're not going to do anything. Like, no, a public good is non-rival and non-exclusive.
Right.
And so, kind of laying out, all right, well, here's your contribution to that. Like, we can't take you out of it, and you're not going to get any more for paying more or less, then it's a public good. And there is efficiency in provision of public goods. And that's where governments come in.
Right.
Governments are really good at delivering public goods. They're terrible at delivering everything else.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So if there's a thing that you can use either to the exclusion of somebody else or to rival with somebody else's use of the thing, that's not a public good and shouldn't be provided by the government.
All right. This is
carry my libertarian capitalist flag around. Just like,
that's great, man.
Yeah.
No, I agree.
This is the basics of the...
I tend to default to libertarianism until a better argument is presented. In the same way that I think the republic is, the capitalist republic is the best system we have, even though it's really flawed. It's just a little bit better than all the others. But then again, are we even living under one? And this brings me to... a last question. We have
democratic tyranny.
By the way, did you know that we've almost blown through time?
I have no idea what time is it.
So you must be having fun because you haven't complained. You haven't given me.
I don't.
We have a secret nod, and you didn't give me the secret nod. So I'll try to wrap it up here.
If we're coming up on the 3-hour mark, we should probably sort of sew it up.
We hit 2, and I don't want to murder our viewers.
Yeah.
And if you like this, just clamor. Go online and clamor and say we want more, and then I'll trick him, con him. Ask him to come back on, and we'll do more.
Yeah.
Right?
I could do an entire economics one. I could do a hacker one. It's fun.
I like that. I'm not even close to spent.
Now, everybody read Human Action before the economics podcast. Or Man, Economy, and State, as you like.
So we didn't get to talk about golden opportunities or anything like that, but actually I want to get around to technocracy, and then we'll let people off the hook.
Sure.
So
that's the old radio show I was on, Off the Hook.
Off the Hook? Really?
That was going to.
Oh yeah. How did you get it? Do you mind if we do one more thing and then we'll Sure. Off the Hook. How did you get into that? I'm really curious.
Yeah. So 2600 Magazine is the Hacker Quarterly. It's been around since I think the 80s, or early 84. 84, I think, was the first issue. Manuel Goldstein's the publisher. And they were having a conference. The original HOPE, Hackers on Planet Earth conference, was in 94. I was attendee at that. And then there was...
I've been to a few.
Yeah. There's a successor conference called Beyond.
They're fun. Shut your phone off.
Yeah. Any hacker conference.
If you're wise, you'll shut your phone off.
Every hacker conference, leave your stuff at home. Bring the minimum.
And don't have a tight appointment in the elevator in case they toy with that.
Yeah. Elevators are a great fun topic. Don't play with elevators. Elevators will do everything in their power to keep you alive as long as you're inside them.
Right.
And you don't screw with them. So don't screw with elevators. But they're fascinating pieces of technology, the history of the language. Regardless, HOPE. So I helped organize Beyond HOPE, which was in '97. And the radio show Off the Hook was there, and so I kind of showed up as just a person who was delivering, hey, here's what's happening at Beyond HOPE, the whole 9 yards. And apparently I was liked by the audience and so forth, so I got to come back fairly regularly.
Okay.
And I was there pretty much every week for about 4.5 years.
Wow. I can't believe I didn't know that. I don't know how I missed this about you.
Yeah. Following 9/11, I kind of left the show.
Really? Oh, okay.
Yeah, so the station it was on had a whole bunch of stuff going on, and I reprioritized quite a bit of my life. So
right.
Yeah, I miss it.
It's funny because the whole country, the whole world reprioritized after that.
Yeah.
But especially people in New York.
Yeah.
You could not possibly not shift after that. So
yeah,
I mean, even if your philosophies didn't, your day-to-day took on new meaning.
Yeah, you became very aware of what was going on around you.
Right. I mean, I've called out bags I see sitting alone on subways and in buildings. I have a little bit of a rebellious, chaotic streak, but when a bag is sitting there and it doesn't belong to anyone.
Like what's going on?
Yeah, I can't see what's in it. Okay, right, better tell someone.
Let's do the thing.
Let's do the thing.
Yeah, I was very busy after 9/11, or during and then after 9/11, and I just kind of reprioritized. But okay. Yeah, I miss radio. This is fun. Like this is the first long format I've sat down in for a while. I've done a lot of little interviews for people.
Right,
yards, but
it's great, and
you get to chat about random crap.
You're not afraid to go anywhere, which is really, really awesome. And you have.
I don't like
you applied
places.
your brain to just crazy Segways.
You remember
you
the
did
days
it again.
Before the Segway changed everything?
Oh man!
All transportation
volley and a spike.
Segway based.
So
buses, a thing of the past. Do you remember buses?
Yeah.
Now that we have trains of Segways,
something like this actually happened. So something like this is we went cross country this year. My family and I went on a road trip and went cross country.
You rode Segways?
And we went, no, not Segways, electric scooters.
Oh,
in Utah, Salt Lake City.
It's fun.
There is a large number of people using electric scooters as primary transportation, like standing scooters. Mm-hmm. It's bizarre. It's weird.
The
it's like a sci-fi world. It's like you landed on a
those. If they were like a moped sort of electric.
I don't care if I like them or not. It was bizarre. Just seeing like half of the foot traffic was people going around on electric
scooters. You see them in the city too. It's a thing. I gotta get my motorcycle back. That was a fun time.
What kind of bike did you ride?
Yamaha.
What do you want to ride?
My dream bike?
Yeah.
Or the right mid-range Honda ACE, Honda Shadow.
Oh, okay, cool.
Like a nice.
So you're a cruiser guy now.
You
don't want to go to 200 miles an hour.
No.
You don't want to find the limiter.
I've never been that guy.
Yeah. I've been that guy in a car, but a bike is crazy. Yeah, I'm afraid.
I want to put my foot down and worry about not being able to pick it back up.
Yeah, there's enough danger out there without adding to it. But crazy respect to the people who can.
I'm the tailing end of new math education. Like I got bones that are getting fragile.
Yeah. You know what it is? It's when you do the physics math and you go, oh, this is the point where you must die.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Yeah. Maybe 70 is the limit.
Aircraft
75.
Is,
if you're in a rush.
Aircraft is another one of those things. Like I am. Just between you, me, and them.
Yeah.
Like I am a nervous flyer.
Oh, dude, the camera's on. No. Okay.
Yeah. Oh, sure. Yeah, I'm not good in the back of the plane.
Oh, really?
If I'm in the front of the plane, I am happy.
Really?
Like it is a great experience. But if I'm in a normal seat and I'm looking out the window, I know too much.
Yeah. Oh man, you're thinking about
those flaps didn't come.
Well, you know what? This is the problem with being the technocrat.
There's. Why do we just change altitude?
You just see the whole system in your mind.
Well, it's but not having all the inputs, right?
Right.
We didn't hit that VOR. Why are we off course?
It's almost like you see it you see a schematic and then you see a formula, and the problem is all the variables are blank.
But the worst part is I know it's fine. I really dislike turbulence.
Right.
But I know the engineering behind the airplane is fine. I've explained. Do you want the secret to not being nervous on an airplane? It's evil.
Drugs?
No. Well, I'm sure. I don't go that route. But if you are frightened and you want to not be frightened,
okay,
you have to be an evil person.
Go on.
You make somebody else more scared than you are.
Oh.
At which point, they're now looking to you for comfort, and you got to man up.
You don't know something until you teach it.
Right.
Very clever. I like that.
And it's terrible. It's a terrible, terrible thing to do with another human being.
It's beautiful because you just put them in the engineering mindset.
Well, sure. But it's a poor, it's a poor engineering mindset.
Necessity is the mother of invention.
There are a very few situations in which turbulence can take down an aircraft.
Yeah.
And yet, when we hit turbulence, I get very upset.
Right.
Like, well, what if a wing snaps off? And you explained, well, a wing really can't snap off. You see, there's a single connective brace that goes from wingtip to wingtip through the fuselage. It's not like they're bolted onto the sides. The wing is primarily the aircraft.
Right.
It's the rest of the plane that is kind of bolted onto it. So the wings aren't going to go like snap. I mean, they can eventually.
The rest of the plane will go snap.
Yeah.
Hence why you don't want to be in the back.
Right.
Excellent. Well explained.
The aerodynamics of the aircraft are severely compromised when the rest of the fuselage goes away as well. But it's not like you're just going to have the right wing fall off and the left wing is still there. Like you would lose the rest of the aircraft.
Well, that's why you don't have any maker blogs on airplanes.
But so I'm an engineer.
Nobody wants to do that.
So but I think the point is I think like an engineer. I know the math. I know the numbers. I don't get any comfort with that. Besides being evil, which I've gotten away from, there is a thing that gives me comfort.
Right.
And it is the most irrational, crazy thing. An airplane is a sky whale.
Continue.
Okay.
And we're in its belly.
Yes.
It's very biblical.
The airplane is a sky whale. Think about a whale in the ocean.
Or Pinocchio, depending on your preference.
A whale in the ocean is this huge, lumbering, massive thing. Have you ever seen a beached whale?
Yep.
They are miserable.
I mean, not in person.
Yeah.
That would be a little...
I hope you never do.
It would be a little morose to be running.
I hope you never do. Because a beached whale is one of the saddest, like, just kind of, it's in its wrong environment.
Right.
And if you've ever seen a fully fueled 737 or 747 on the tarmac, its wings are kind of drooping because it's so full of fuel, and it just kind of, like, shuffles around.
And you can just look at the landing gear linkage.
Yeah, it's all
you can
like...
see how, like, okay, one tiny fraction of the lateral force of the weight of that plane, those things are going to snap.
It's fragile, it's sad, it doesn't want to be there. The natural place for an aircraft is in the air. Just as the natural place for a whale is in the ocean.
Dude, next time I'm on GCP driving past the airport, I'm going to be like, I'm going to crash.
Look at those lumbering.
I'm going to look at the lumbering. I'm going to look at one of the planes taking off and be like, be free.
It's where it wants to be. Right. And so
I'm happy for you.
And so the thing that actually gives me comfort, like if I can get it in my head, because sometimes I'm just like a little freaked out, but if I can get it in my head, it's that the airplane, this is where it belongs. If the wings are kind of moving around a little bit and it's bumping, it's just riding the stream. It's a sky whale. It's happiest when it's aloft. And it wants to stay aloft. It does not want to be on the ground. It wants to stay in the air. And it will do what it can to be in the air.
Wow.
The engineering part of me like understands the physics and it's like everything is going to be fine. All the math says it's going to be fine. The thing that gives me comfort, sky whale.
Sky whale.
Like
that's great.
It's weird. I think it's human.
No, that's
proof
good.
that I'm human. I think.
Some totally people serious. I mean, all right, it's funny, but totally serious. You probably just helped someone. So great.
Sky whale.
I want to say thank you so much for coming on my first show.
Oh, that's how we're going to leave it.
What, you don't want to do?
It's poetic. It's poetic. I like
it. Is there something? Well, all right. Let me say. Ask you this.
I like it.
I want to give you a chance. Do you want to end with sky whale?
I
is there one last?
I like sky whale.
I like sky whale too. Thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you, sir. It's
all right.
my pleasure.
All right. Good night. See you next Thursday.